Welcome to the Flagship Studios at the 2024 JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. I'm joined by CEO and co-founder of Metaphore Biotechnologies, Lovisa Afzelius. Lovisa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Really exciting last year, Metaphore launched. Why don't we just start by talking a little bit about the company? Can you tell us about its vision and what you're doing there?
Absolutely, happy to. So at Metaphore, we started off with a what-if question as to what if we could mimic any target-ligand interaction in the body? Because if we could do so, then we could use those mimics and optimize towards the optimal medicines, really. And we actually took a lot of inspiration from nature because mimicry is really one of the oldest tricks in nature as to how, if it's evolutionary advantageous, one species actually mimics another one to get that advantage. So let's say, for example, a butterfly that uses a pattern of an owl's eyes on its wings, then it can actually exert the power of that fearful owl, yet being that very fragile little butterfly. So we said, what if we could do the exact same thing with molecules? That we could actually define what is exactly that pharmacophore that is needed to drive function. Because if we could then mimic that pharmacophore, we could reduce the problem from being a very, very complex problem of a protein-protein interaction, reducing it down to something which is much more feasible. We could actually reduce it by a Google-fold, like 10 to the order of 100.
Wow.
And by doing so, then all by a sudden, this becomes a programmable problem that we can solve computationally. So that's sort of the essence of what we're up for at Metaphore. And what we've done is that we built a platform that allows us to actually derive single amino acid resolution maps of any such interface. And in doing so, what we've done is basically that we generate thousands, hundreds of thousands of different protein variants that are similar to the interactions that we're looking to mimic. And we measure the function of those. And that allows us to actually define almost what's the conformational space of the pharmacophore that we're looking to mimic. And then we use that to computationally sample with any sequence to find what is that optimal match towards that pharmacophore. And since we're only focusing on those few interactions that are needed, we can use the rest of the protein to simultaneously optimize for other features, orthogonal features like immunogenicity, developability, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're doing now is we're building out a broad pipeline from our platform where we're prototyping and productizing the different capabilities. So we are addressing things like, agonism, multispecificity, selectivity, specificity. These kind of questions that are generally really, really hard to do in a programmable way.
And so that's a really awesome story, and the butterfly is a really nice visual to be able to understand. There's one thing I wanted to double tap on here, which is this word pharmacophore that you were using. It might be a new term to some. Can you explain a little bit about what a pharmacophore is and the value of mimicking it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. I think I did my PhD in that space, computational chemistry. So it's just one of those words you grew up with. But it's really, these are the spatial features that are required in order to exert the function that you're after. So it can be like a hydrogen bond acceptor at one place, a hydrogen bond donor at one place. It's a hydrophobic interaction. It's a volume restriction. Those kind of features that are required to actually drive that downstream function. And we really critically focus on only those points. And by doing so, we can then mimic the functions very efficiently.
And so, you talk about this powerful platform that you're using to do a lot of this, and I know AI is an important part of this. I've heard you speak a lot last year about the value of properly integrating AI with biology and making sure one doesn't fully replace the other. Can you explain how you're doing that at Metaphore?
So I think at Metaphore and in all companies where we're really leveraging that interplay between AI and biology, I think it's a lot about building a culture where you're actually thinking about those two themes as synergistic. and how we make sure that the teams really understand and become fluent in both languages, so that we come together and sit around the same table as to when we are designing our experiments. Because many times what you need for your computational work may be slightly different from what you need in the biology optimization work. And in order to generate that right types of data, it's really important that everyone sits at the same table and understands why we are generating what type of data, and that we're also using algorithms that can truly explain those biological features that we're looking to model in our systems. And that's something that we do on, I would say, on a daily basis at Metaphor, and I think it's very critical for it to be successful as such.
And it sounds like a culture of collaboration in achieving that is going to be really important. And I know that's something that's really, that you've described as really important to you at Metaphor specifically. Can you talk a bit about how you build a culture like that, a culture of collaboration?
I think the culture is so immensely important for a company to be successful, that the teams actually feel appreciated, and that you really feel that you're part of something bigger. I think that's really what's driving success, and it's something you constantly need to focus on and bring to the top of the agenda, and that's something that we really try to do. Bring it up as as important of a goal as every other company goal, and making it to the top of the agenda, so that everyone can feel that there is a focus on it, and that is a core aspect of the company as such. And I think in particular when it's a startup that is growing really fast and you constantly sort of adapting to the science, etc., it's even harder, but also more important, that you focus very strongly on the culture already from the very beginning. So
awesome. So a new vocab word, pharmacophore, the integration of biology and AI appropriately, and a culture of collaboration to make it happen. Thanks for joining us, Lovisa.
Thank you, Joe.